So this is a custom home that I finished up in October of 2025, and it took me about 10 months to build. So this is a 3-bed, 3-bath house in Levy County on Archer Road, right outside of the town of Bronson. And I built this house for some clients that were moving up from South Florida. And so, these particular clients, whenever they reached out to me, they'd already started working with another builder on plans. They hadn't started construction yet, but they already, were working with another builder, had a draftsman drafting plans for them. And one of the issues they were having is the other builder was really trying to push them towards a country style home. And coming from South Florida, they were looking to integrate some of the styles and, the shape of the home and just overall feel they were used to seeing in South Florida, even though they were building in Levy County in the northern part of the state where more of the homes, have a country feel to them. They were really looking for something that had some of that South Florida flair to it. And so when they reached out to me, I saw their inspiration pictures and it was pretty clear in the direction they wanted to go in. We weren't building the house in South Florida, so we didn't necessarily need, a CBS block and a tile roof. But, definitely a nod to, some of the features that you're seeing on a lot of South Florida style homes. And so, whenever I took over for this client and, we, worked on plans and worked on new specs, we definitely, sought to integrate those features into the plan design. And so I'm going to go over, some of those features in this video. So for starters, the shape of the house, right? So the shape we went with is very similar to a lot of South Florida style homes where it's a little bit more of a boxy design. It's definitely a house built for a hip roof rather than a gable roof. So, as you can see, we went with a lower pitched hip roof on this house. The garage juts out quite a bit. In South Florida, you'll see this in a lot of subdivisions for more courtyard style entries. So this particular shape, we didn't do a courtyard style entryway, that we did a side entry garage, where the driveway kind of curls around the side of the house. But you see this a lot in South Florida on, half acre lots where they're utilizing courtyard entries right there in front of the front porch. And so, one thing also with this house, as you can see, the front porch is not very big, which is not super common for a lot of Levy County, North Florida style homes. You're going to see bigger porches on a lot of the country and farmhouse style homes, where this house we did more of like a covered entry front porch with a pop-up roof, pop-up hip roof, which again, leaning into that, something you see a lot more in South Florida and in subdivisions, not so much on 6 acres out in Levy County. But to get that look my clients are going for, this was definitely important for that. And, some of the upgraded features we did on the exterior of this home. So we did picture encasement windows that were impact glass as well as impact doors. So, all the swing doors were impact, and then also this really large slider looking out to the back pool area was also impact glass, which, coming from South Florida where you're used to, impact glass windows and doors, this was something my clients were really comfortable with. And then we also did a hardy board fascia soffit, which we painted iron ore. So, actually it's kind of like an accent piece on the exterior of this house. I'm a really big fan of hardy board fascia soffit. It's what I spec on the vast majority of my homes. Just going to hold up really well, and it's more durable than the aluminum fascias and soffit you're seeing on most new construction homes in North Florida. And it is more expensive. It's about twice as expensive, but it's going to last a really long time. If there's a hurricane that comes through, it's not going to get blown down, at least not nearly as easily. It's going to be a lot more maintenance free over time. And then we also went with 12-inch hardy plank siding on this house, which is something I really like to do. In this case, it's contributing to a more modern look. I like to do this on my more modern homes where we're using James Hardie siding, or, my larger homes. So that's one of the things we did on this house. We didn't go with just a standard 6-inch reveal hardy plank like, the vast majority of new construction homes in this area. And I feel like that 12-inch hardy plank, adds a little bit of interest to the exterior of the house. And then, for a little interest on the exterior, we went with some wood look garage doors. So these are still steel. But they do have a wood look exterior just for a little pop, just for a little accent on the exterior of the house. And, kind of contributes to that modern look and modern feel. And then my clients also put a pool in, which is, again, contributes to that South Florida feel. And really all throughout Florida, we're seeing a lot of pools. So I set my clients up with my pool guy, and, we worked in conjunction to install the pool during the second half of this build. And so, we've got the pool in by, Mike Hartzog with Hydrofund. We got the screen put in by A1 Aluminum. And, definitely creates a nice, back porch pool area for the clients. And so moving to the inside of this house, you can tell immediately, like, they're going for more of a modern contemporary finish with, the different colors and textures we have in this house. So we've got large format polished porcelain tiles throughout. It's all the floors of this house. And, I'm a really big fan of the large format tiles, less grout lines that are going to get dirty. And the polished porcelain tile really contributes to that South Florida feel. And then you're going into the kitchen, we did kind of like a white-black contrast, the black lowers with the white uppers. We went the shaker style, which, contributes to kind of a flat, more modern feel in this house. And then, we did white and black quartz countertops, which we did the white and black quartz countertops that turned into a mitered waterfall on the island. And we also ran those same quartz countertops up the backsplash, which I really like just for color continuity. So that way you're not adding, a new color or a new tile into the mix where the colors may not match up. I'm a big fan of running the countertop up the backsplash to the bottom of the cabinets, to the bottom of the hood, like we did in this case. And then, just for a splash of accent on the backside of the island, we did some, fluted wood accent there, just for a little splash of, extra color. So I think that looks really good. And then going into the great room, we did the more modern linear electric fireplace, with a black porcelain tile surround, and then also painted black built-ins that match the color of the tray ceiling here. So definitely, you can see modern finishes throughout this main living area of the house. And so, moving into the bathrooms, we did a freestanding tub in the primary bath, which is very common in my houses. Whether we're doing modern or farmhouse or anything in between, these freestanding tubs are pretty typical nowadays. We have a nice niche over the tub here in this case. And, behind it, we have a dual entry shower, which turned out pretty nice, with some large format tiles there. And then also in the guest baths, we did large format tile as well. Again, just a really big fan of this large format tile where you don't have a bunch of grout lines. With the smaller subway tiles, you're going to have 10 times as many grout lines as these and a lot more to clean. So personally, I'm just a big fan of the large format tile, like what we did in this house. Although I do showers of all, with all different tile sizes, but definitely a big fan of this large format. And so, another pretty interesting statement piece of this house is this wallpaper that was put up in the office. So this was a later addition, so we didn't originally spec wallpaper to go in this room. So, we textured the walls with my typical, sheetrock and skip trowel plaster texture in here. And so the walls had to be slick smooth. And my clients got a hold of a wallpaper and had this wallpaper installed. And, we're seeing a lot more wallpaper being incorporated into custom builds now than we were 5 years ago. Wallpaper was, really big, 20, 30, 40 years ago. And then it kind of took a little bit of a hiatus. And we're definitely seeing it come back. We're seeing some pretty interesting designs like this one that was used in the office. And so also in this house, we have a pretty good sized pantry. So, we're able to put some lower cabinets in here with a butcher block clear coated countertop and some of those same, butcher block clear coated shelves above for plenty of storage. And so this was definitely something my client was pretty excited about. And so, yeah, I was really happy with the way this house turned out. I love building for clients that are moving here from other places because they're going to incorporate things that we don't always see in the Gainesville, Ocala, Lake City area. They're going to bring ideas from, South Florida or California or overseas. And I really appreciate that. And, just getting to do different things and build a portfolio of different styles of houses. And, this was definitely one that I think turned out really well. And I hope to build, more houses like this in the future, in the Gainesville area and in the Levy County area.